Good morning, Shirley.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. There's been a lot of talk on LinkedIn and in the media lately about, menopause in the workplace. And I think that's fascinating because I feel like we've spent so much time talking about how it impacts us on a personal level with our family at home and sleep and sex. But we don't talk about, what about the other side of our lives? Because women do have another side and it's called their career. Um, so I actually have been going through the Menopause Foundation of Canada, their recent report, The Shame and Stigma of Menopause in Canada. There's a lot of great stuff in this report. It's a real eye opener and they are doing such a great job. But when I read through some of their stats, I thought this is a little staggering because this is such a critical time in a woman's life. Like when you're hitting menopause, you're probably at the age where you're also hitting the pinnacle of your career. Not a good time to lose your memory, have brain fog, have hormone rage, and hot sweats. And considering like what the report says is that the equity women, workplace equity women account for half of the workforce in Canada.
Yes.
That's crazy. That's like more than 5 million working women who are in perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. Um, so that's actually translates to like a quarter of Canada's 19 million person workforce are going through menopause or are in the transition.
Yep.
That's hefty.
Yep. 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 And we're like really the first generation
Yeah.
to be experiencing this. We're definitely, I mean, yes, we have the boomers ahead of us, but and we're definitely the first generation to be talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the boomers, and like I know that I can't say anything definitively here, but um, you know, I think women still like rushed home and took care of the kids and tried to get 9 to 5 work. We've got, a high percentage of small business owners and entrepreneurs in Canada are women. You and I both know that's not a 9 to 5 job.
I love that you bring that up because I have a lot of thoughts around when I see the phrase menopause in the workplace.
Yeah.
And I think it's so amazing that we have this chance to unpack that.
Mhm.
First of all, what do people mean when they say menopause in the workforce? Often that gets translated into suffering in the workplace,
Yes.
symptoms in the workplace, negativity in the workplace,
Disruption.
inability, disruption, pushing women down. Like um there's a lot of negativity baked into just that word alone. So I love the chance to unpack it. And the second thing I want to say, like right off the top, is that workplace, when we see that in a headline, and there was a headline in the New York Times yesterday, immediately for many folks, that means office environment,
Yes.
career. You said pinnacle of her career, advancing to the C-suite, or maybe it's a, middle management job or whatever it is, but it's an office environment,
Yeah.
which, do not get me wrong, that is important, but I like to widen the vantage point
Yeah.
and think about the women in my community. And I think about those professions that are predominantly female:
Yeah.
nurses, healthcare workers, teachers.
Mhm.
And then what does that bring to the conversation? Because, well, you probably see sometimes in the menopause chicks community, like a grade 3 teacher who is bleeding through a super plus tampon, one an hour, and she cannot go to the washroom,
Mhm.
care of herself appropriately. And 8 hours of that, I mean, that's a huge workplace issue. So
Yeah.
are we thinking about that? Yes. Are we thinking about women who might be getting overlooked for job promotions? Absolutely. It's all of those
Yeah.
conversations. And it
I
wasn't
think
it wasn't just boomers that go home and take
uh,
care of the majority of the family and household work. It's women in general. And sometimes, when these conversations in the workplace come up, I think women aren't leaving their jobs because of perimenopause or menopause, even though some of the statistics have been translated to that. I believe women might be leaving their job because they're tired
Yeah.
and they feel unsupported and they haven't had access not only to information and education, but they've already tried going to their doctor. And we know that half of them leave that appointment feeling dismissed and disappointed. So it's this and this and this. Like we could just draw such an incredible matrix about workplace conversations alone.
And again, we focus on menopause, but we know a lot more about menopause than we did even 3 years ago. That's great. So, to your point, like widening that vantage point. So, women who are, say, going to an office, let's use that as the example. They know they're in menopause, menopause meaning they don't have a period anymore. They know what to expect. They've now read about some of the side effects and symptoms. They have mostly been dismissed by their doctors and not triaged to proper care. However, like let's talk about women going through perimenopause, as we've talked about before, who go into work and don't know they're in peri. They
Mhm.
just think they're losing their shit. Like, I forget stuff. I am having a hot flash in a meeting. Like, I get hot flashes, but I don't get huge sweats. So I can't imagine what that must feel like in a boardroom or in a presentation or just like in front of your peers where you feel like you have no control. And yet you're not attributing that to perimenopause, which all women go through. You're, or not all women, all women who go through natural menopause, but you don't know what's going on. So it really does send a lot of fear into women who are already dealing with ageism in the workplace.
Yeah, it sends fear into women. And as you're describing those experiences that are debilitating, embarrass, like, so much for the individual herself,
Hmm.
it's also happening in a culture that has stereotypes that we haven't yet addressed.
Yes.
And you know me, I like to like lift the hood and try to peel back the layers of the onion and talk about the root cause as much as we can. And I think that this is an excellent example of that.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, we can talk and educate, but if we're doing it in an environment and a culture that has generational myths, stereotypes, ageism, misogyny, patriarchy, like I'm not saying it's all like that, but there's elements of it.
Yeah.
What's an individual and or a group of employees and or a leadership team at a workplace to do about that? It's a huge
It's
under.
a it's really interesting. So I know that you do talk to companies about how to, support someone. I guess I have a few questions for you on this because I no longer work in an agency world. I'm not like you. I'm not surrounded by that. I've got a dog and a kid and a husband. So they're almost a tougher crowd.
And
But
we have each other.
and yeah, exactly. But I did work in advertising, so that's a very ageist industry, for men and women. But I look around at what my world was like. And when a woman got pregnant in my office, we had a baby shower. And when she forgot something, she had baby brain. It was so cute. She got to leave for appointments. You go into menopause and you need appointments or you forget something. That speaks to that stereotype. You are old, you are irrelevant, you are maybe not capable anymore. And guess what? You having to leave for appointments, that's disrupting everyone around you. It's a totally different take on probably the same amount of time that we're taking off work or being distracted or, being inconveniencing those around us.
Yeah. Well, language works, conversations matter.
Hmm.
I think that's how we get to the heart of this. So, using your example of how we revere parenthood in our
Hmm.
culture, imagine if when we talked about parenthood, when we talked about paternal leave in the workplace, imagine if the only thing we talked about was poopy diapers.
Felt like
Right?
it.
We
Yeah.
don't do that. We talk
No.
about the joys of parenthood, the amazing experience of having a baby and raising them, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to women's health in particular, we often lead with the negativity.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that women don't suffer because we know that we do.
Yeah.
But we're not leading by saying, let us hold you up. You are smart, you are savvy, you are wise, you are a leader, you are a supportive peer, you know, what if we took all the 35 and up women, 35 years old and up women, and said, we value you.
Yeah.
Your health is important to us. I mean,
Hmm. You
it's
bring a lot to
lofty.
the table. It's like a, it's a brain drain to lose women at this point in their lives,
Absolutely.
because we come
Absolutely.
jam-packed with that experience and expertise and understanding.
Yeah.
But I think, when I think about it, had someone come into my work, my place of work, and said, "We're all gonna sit down at a table, we're gonna have a conversation," I think I would have felt uncomfortable
Yes,
because,
it's personal.
yeah, it's personal, but also, when we're dealing with the reality of this, it is that if I'm sitting at a table and there are three young women in their 20s or 30s, and they've had their baby showers, and there's men at the table, and then they talk about menopause. First of all, we talk about it, like you said, in a negative way. Secondly, I feel like everyone's looking at me, and I'm worried that they say see me as like old and past my prime and weak, like redundant. And
So,
that's an
yeah,
important conversation because it's frightening to have that.
what I hear you saying is judgment.
Yeah, of
I
course.
don't know how we fix judgment, because there are judgment around other elements of life too, including parenthood. There's judgments
Oh,
attached. But I'll tell you what I like that's happening right now.
okay,
So, on coming up on June 14th, I've been invited by a company to do an online Zoom informational session.
great.
And the beauty of where we are right now in this timeline is that we have technology in our favor. And
Yeah,
so Zoom allows employees to access quality information and education, to hear perhaps a different perspective, a new or a renewed perspective about how they can prioritize their health and get the support that they need. And it allows them to be anonymous. So
yeah,
you can attend the session, get the information. You don't have to have your camera on. You don't have to use your real name. If you want to ask a question about vaginal dryness, you will get a quality answer, and none of your peers need to know. And
right.
I think that that is so good compared to back, as you said, when I worked in corporate. We did have wellness sessions, but you had to go to the lunchroom, at 12
Yeah.
o'clock with your lunch, and that was it. It's not always an environment for those types of conversations. So I love that that's happening. But some of the other things that I would love to see, and I hope that, like, we probably have some male and female leaders who can take charge in this regard,
Hmm.
is review your benefit package. Like, if
Yes.
you're a leader in an organization, a union, a workplace, you have a role and responsibility to review that all of your employees, not just 50% of them, all of your employees have access to the healthcare that they need.
Yeah.
So that's something that we can do. And then there's other, like, loftier things, like investing in women's health research. Less than
Hmm.
12% of research dollars in Canada are going to women's specific health concerns. So if you want to make a difference, corporate Canada, here's a way that you can do it and invest in that area, and or, help lobby with government or influencers. I think there's more things than we could, like, definitely we can take care of employees at the wellness level, but there's other things that companies and organizations can do to move this conversation forward.
I agree. I think that, sort of going in and expecting women to be able to go to a senior male manager to talk to him about her hot flash, that's unrealistic. And I'm sorry, I wouldn't put that on him either. Like, what's he gonna do?
Necessary.
It's not necessary. And I love the idea of having this Zoom conversation with the anonymity. Of course, we want everyone talking about this, but there's still a place for privacy and
Well, and those who want
discretion.
to talk are open to talk because the company has supported that education, which
Yeah.
is brilliant,
And I
right?
think all companies should have some sort of like a resource hub for women,
Yeah.
that drives them to your site, to podcasts, to NAMs. Like, they need to know that, like sometimes that support is just as simple as showing them where to go and where to do some research or who they can talk to. I mean, it just seems so frustrating. You're a woman, You're working, you're balancing life. Now you're going through this. Your doctor can't help you. Your employer, you feel unsupported. You feel uncomfortable talking around your colleagues because they might be younger or judge you. Like, no
Judge,
wonder women have mental health issues when it
judge,
comes to this.
judging. There, that word is like a real theme today, but I think it's so important that we crack open the conversation on that, because I often think about, like, I kind of get, I don't know, a little heebie-jeebie-ish. That's not a word, but when I hear about the menopause lunch and learn, at such and such a company, and I think, oh, I know that there's going to be women who attend that.
Hmm.
There's also going to be people who see the poster in the elevator, who don't go to the workshop, so they
Yeah.
don't get the real quality information, and then they make a judgment about the women on their team. And that's
Yes.
the first place to be.
Yeah.
So, that's a small, let's say that's a small percentage of the population who are going to do that. I think most leaders and managers are compassionate and supportive and flexible, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
No matter what we're talking about, mental health or menopause or something, or parenthood or something else, flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Compassion and support.
And also, if you think about it, there are men, there are women in that same environment who will be touched by menopause, either
Yes.
as a woman yourself, or maybe you have a same-sex partner and she's going through it, and you want to understand like how to support your partner. And for the men in the company, they might be, if they're in a heterosexual marriage, they want to know why their partner is behaving the way that they are. And like, it doesn't have to be a massive lunch and learn, but there should be these resources that you can attain at your discretion.
I think I told you this already, but in January, after the CBC, the National, ran that piece on menopause, my first three text messages were from men on LinkedIn,
Wow. I'm not surprised.
because it was a media piece that reached a different audience, right, than I
Yeah,
speak to. And it was, a former coworker, a friend, and somebody that I don't know but had my LinkedIn. And I
probably
was
my
like,
husband.
yeah.
What do I do with her? No, I think that's actually really interesting. I don't know if I told you this, but years ago, a neighbor was on my page and he said to me, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I wrote a post because I had kicked everyone out to school and work and yelled at everybody and made everyone cry. And then they left. And then I cried all day because I felt such shame over losing my cool with them. And just, oh, God, I can still feel it. I felt so horrible. And I wrote a post about it. And he responded by saying, I'm so glad that you said this because I think from reading your post, my wife might actually be in perimenopause because we've been having issues. And I sent him a few resources, and later on, he thanked me. And I guess they had an open dialogue about it, and she got the help she needed. But this is the thing, and it's to like the menopause chicks. This is what you're about. Those conversations are critical in helping us move forward through this.
Yeah. You've just hit another button of mine.
Let's go.
Probably be for next week, but sometimes I feel that when we have these conversations about, oh, here's the information about perimenopause and menopause, it's like we're putting women's behavior
Yeah.
into a box and putting a label on it. And I'll be honest with you, when I was in my early 40s, that's what I wanted to do. I was off the rails, stressed, not sleeping, yelling at my kids, crying all day, blah, 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 blah. And I wanted something to point at. And it's what got me this gig, right? I wanted to
Yeah.
be like, oh, I want to blame perimenopause, but then I wanted to like do something about it. And I worry that the language is preventing us from doing that a little
Yeah.
bit. Read a headline in the New York Times that says, menopause in the workplace. Um, that means something different for everyone.
It is slightly triggering.
Not acknowledging the fact that women are tired, they are doing the majority of the child rearing, they are looking after their aging parents, and they're trying to hold up all of their team at work and volunteer in the community. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah. And
the
also,
world is on
sorry, through a global pandemic.
through a global pandemic.
Like, so your adrenal glands are like, what the heck? I agree.
So if your
That's a
partner
really
or your
good
boss,
point.
if your partner or your boss goes, "Oh, I get it. Oh, Jackie's that age, right? I
Yeah,
understand."
she's at that age. But
And
you're right. That's the same thing as saying, oh, you must be on your period. You
yeah,
must be getting your period.
yeah, it's
Like,
PMS.
it's basically saying, it's dismissing you. It's dismissive language. You're right. Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we wrap this up, if you had to tell someone who was worried about what they're experiencing and how it's impacting their career, their job, whether it be a nurse, a teacher, someone in corporate, what is one or two pieces of advice you would give them to approach their employer or to garner some support in their own work environment?
I would say begin with the end in mind. You deserve to feel amazing. If you don't yet feel amazing, then know that you are smart and savvy, and you will find a way to access the right information and the right health team to support you on the journey towards feeling amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I say that about a few hundred times a day. But the reason that I do that is because we have to move away from the negativity ball
Yep. Yep, absolutely, because it's tied
before
right in with
something.
perception.
And it's a reminder for some of us. Sometimes it's a reminder, sometimes it's a permission slip. A
Yeah.
lot of permission slip to be like, oh, wait a second, that can wait. I have to go focus and figure this out. So I would say, of course I would say like come to a class, get the best information, have a conversation, here's some script tips, blah, blah, blah. But you can't do any of that unless you believe that you deserve it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, yeah, it builds confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent conversation as always, Shirley. Thank you.
The invitation.